Carolina, Mr. Gowdy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the families of the victims, it's been 8 months. And I know that there are those who have said that's a long time ago. But the good news is there is no statute of limitations when it comes to finding out the truth, particularly for those who have served and sacrificed and died under our flags. So, Mr. Hicks, let's find out the truth. The President of Libya responded to the attack and labeled it an attack by Islamic extremists, possibly with terror links, correct?
Yes, sir.
So hours after our ambassador and 3 others are killed in Benghazi, the President of Libya says it was an attack with possible terror links, correct?
Yes, sir. That's what I recall.
Did the President of Libya ever mention a spontaneous protest related to a video?
No, sir.
When Ambassador Stevens talked to you, perhaps minutes before he died, as a dying declaration, what precisely did he say to you?
He said, Greg, we're under attack.
Would a highly decorated career diplomat have told you or Washington had there been a demonstration outside his facility that day?
Yes, sir, he would have.
Did he mention one word about a protest or a demonstration?
No, sir, he did not.
So fast forward, Mr. Hicks, to the Sunday talk shows and Ambassador Susan Rice. She blamed this attack on a video. In fact, she did it 5 different times. What was your reaction to that?
I was stunned. My jaw dropped, and I was embarrassed.
Did she talk to you before she went on the 5 Sunday talk shows?
No, sir.
You were the highest-ranking official in Libya at the time, correct?
Yes, sir.
And she did not bother to have a conversation with you before she went on national television?
No, sir.
So Ambassador Rice directly contradicts the evidence on the ground in Libya. She directly contradicts the President of Libya. She directly contradicts the last statement uttered by Ambassador Stevens. Mr. Hicks, who is Beth Jones?
Beth Jones is the Acting Assistant Secretary for Near Eastern Affairs at the State Department.
I want to read an excerpt from an email she sent, and you were copied on it. And by the way, Mr. Chairman, for our colleagues who like to trumpet bipartisanship, this would be a wonderful opportunity to demonstrate it. Some of these emails, even though they're not classified, have not been released, Mr. Chairman, including the one that I'm going to read from. So for my colleagues who trumpet bipartisanship, this would be a wonderful time to prove it. This is from Ms. Jones to you, to counsel for Hillary Clinton, to Victoria Nuland, to Mr. Kennedy, near as I can tell, to almost everyone in the State Department, and I'm going to read from it. I spoke to the Libyan ambassador and emphasized the importance of Libyan leaders continuing to make strong statements. By the way, Mr. Hicks, this email was sent on September the 12th, the day after Benghazi, and several days before Ambassador Rice's television appearance. And I'll continue. When he said his government suspected that former Gaddafi regime elements carried out the attacks, I told him that the group that conducted the attacks, Ansar al-Sharia, is affiliated with Islamic terrorists. Let me say that again, Mr. Hicks. She told him, the State Department, on September the 12th, days before our ambassador went on national television, is telling the ambassador to Libya, the group that conducted the attacks, Ansar al-Sharia, is affiliated with Islamic terrorists. Mr. Hicks, I want to know 2 things. Number one, why in the world would Susan Rice go on 5 Sunday talk shows and perpetuate a demonstrably false narrative? And secondarily, what impact did it have on the ground in Benghazi, the fact that she contradicted the President of Libya?
As to the first question, I cannot provide an answer, but perhaps you should ask Ambassador Rice.
I would love the opportunity to do just that.
As to the second question, At the time, we were trying to get the FBI to Benghazi to begin its investigation. And that talk show actually provided an opportunity to make that happen. Afterwards, we encountered bureaucratic resistance for a long period from the Libyans. The Libyan government at this time is not very deep. President, Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Ministers, ministers, all capable people, some vice ministers as well. And it took us an additional my math's not very fast these days, maybe 18 days to get the FBI team to Benghazi.
So the crime scene was unsecured for 18 days?
Yes, sir.
Witnesses were not interviewed?
Would the gentleman would please finish up? We're going to try and move along.
Yes, I will move on. We will finish this if there is a second round. Thank you, Mr. Hicks.
Thank you. For all individuals, to the extent that...
Well, she has no regrets. That's what National Security Advisor Susan Rice now says about the talking points she delivered on 5 different Sunday morning talk shows right after the Benghazi attack. Here's what she said in September of 2012.
Information, the best information and the best assessment we have today is that, in fact, this was not a pre-planned, premeditated attack. That what happened initially was that it was a spontaneous reaction to what had just transpired in Cairo as a consequence of the video, that people gathered outside the embassy, and then it grew very violent. Those with extremist ties joined the fray and came with heavy weapons, which unfortunately are quite common in post-revolutionary Libya, and that then spun out of control. But we don't see at this point signs that this was a coordinated, planned, premeditated attack.
And now, after more than a year of fierce criticism, Rice still standing by her remarks.
Do you have any regrets?
David, no, because what I said to you that morning and what I did in every day since was to share the best information that we had at the time. The information I provided, which I explained to you, was what we had at the moment. It could change. I commented that this was based on what we knew on that morning, was provided to me and my colleagues, and indeed to Congress, by the intelligence community. And that's been well validated in many different ways since.
Congressman Trey Gowdy joins us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well. Ambassador Rice, now National Security Advisor, of course, says that was the best information available when she went on those talk shows in September 2012. Is that true?
No, there is no evidence to support that false narrative of a video, not a scintilla of evidence. All of the evidence pointed exactly to what she claimed it wasn't, a pre-planned, coordinated attack. So she was fabulously wrong when she said it the first time, and stunningly arrogant in her refusal to express any regret for lying to our fellow citizens.
So what happens? Nothing, right? I mean, that's it.
Well, there are a couple of things that I hope can happen. I would love the chance to ask follow-up questions of Susan Rice, because David Gregory apparently did not avail himself of that opportunity. Greta, I just listened to the clip. I get tougher questions in the Bojangles drive-thru than he asked her. There's no regret about lying to your fellow citizens. No regret about the fact that in 18 months, not a single solitary person's been brought to justice. No regret for misleading the families and the loved ones of those 4 murdered Americans. I can certainly help her if she is struggling to come up with an area of regret. Who did she talk to before she went on the Sunday talk shows? Did she call Hillary Clinton? Did she call Gregory Hicks in Libya? Did she do any due diligence at all?
Why do you think that she said that on that day? I mean, she says it was the best information. You say that that's not true. What was the motive? I still don't get the motive for coming up with the silly video story. What was the point of that one?
Well, I think the most plausible explanation is we can either tell the truth, which undercuts the narrative that the president's been engaged in during the campaign. Remember, we were in the midst of a campaign. Al-Qaeda's on the run and Osama bin Laden is dead. Well, apparently Al-Qaeda was not on the run. They were at the front door of our facility in Benghazi getting ready to kill our ambassador and burn it down. So she can either tell the truth or she can blame it on a video for which there was no evidence whatsoever, and she opted to protect her career and parrot the talking points that were provided to her by the White House.
You know what I regret is that, and this is what I would like to do, is I believe that in Washington, when you don't want to say something, you just stamp it classified, and then nobody gets to see it for 10, 20, 30, 50 years, whatever. I would like a really, fair analysis about whether documents associated with this in the possession of the administration should be classified, or whether the American people ought to be able to see them. I think there's a gross overclassification in this country, and I would bet that a lot of those documents would give us a lot of straight information on what went down.
Well, you're right. A lot of the classified documents are classified to protect political careers, not to protect national interests. But I think it also bears on another point. There are 4 committees that have been looking into this for 18 months. And to my knowledge, not a single one has had the opportunity to ask the follow-up questions that David Gregory failed to ask on Sunday. It may be time to put our efforts together with a select committee with subpoena power, because as you know, I can't subpoena anyone. I can't subpoena the greeter at Walmart. I have no subpoena power. The committee chairman and the speaker do. And I'm about ready to ask Ms. Rice some questions under oath, not David Gregory type questions about what's your favorite color, but real serious questions about why you had so little intellectual curiosity as to question the talking points that you were asked to parrot. Did you ask anybody to prove to you that this was a video? Or did you just go out and parrot it?
Well, if the speaker does and the chairman does issue a subpoena, make sure it also includes one for documents, and try to get all those documents that are now classified, because I think that they will either corroborate or make somebody out to be, telling even bigger fibs. But anyway, Congressman, always nice to see you, sir.